The flickering torches cast dancing shadows on the ancient stone walls as Dor, Richard, and Hunter made their way through the labyrinthine passages beneath London below. The air grew thicker with each step toward Islington's chamber, heavy with the weight of centuries-old secrets. Dor's fingers traced the intricate patterns on the key they had fought so hard to obtain, while Richard couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The Marquis de Carabas's earlier warnings echoed in his mind, becoming clearer with each step they took deeper into the darkness. Islington's chamber was a marvel of impossible architecture, where light seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. The angel's presence filled the space with an otherworldly radiance that made Richard's eyes water. But as Dor presented the key, something shifted in Islington's perfect features. The angelic smile twisted into something else, something ancient and hungry. The Marquis de Carabas's sudden appearance at the chamber's entrance only confirmed their worst fears. His dark eyes were fixed on Islington, and his voice cut through the ethereal atmosphere like a knife. "Tell them, Angel. Tell them what really happened to Atlantis." The truth spilled out like poison, each word from Islington's perfect lips revealing centuries of manipulation and malice. Dor's face paled as she realized the true fate of her family, while Hunter's hand tightened on her spear. Richard watched in horror as the angel's beautiful facade cracked, revealing something terrible beneath. The chamber's light turned harsh and cold, and the walls seemed to pulse with dark energy. But before they could react, Islington raised a hand, and reality itself began to tear apart around them. The last thing Richard saw was the Marquis reaching for something in his coat, a desperate look in his eyes as the floor beneath them started to crumble into an infinite abyss. The ancient tunnels beneath London below echoed with whispers of secrets long forgotten. Richard, Dor, and Hunter navigated through the winding passages, their footsteps creating rhythmic patterns against the damp stone floor. The key they had fought so hard to obtain pulsed with an otherworldly blue light in Dor's hand, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and twist with lives of their own. The air grew thicker with each step, heavy with the weight of centuries and magic that had seeped into these walls. Hunter's usual confident stride faltered for just a moment as they passed beneath an arch covered in glowing symbols that none of them could read. "Something's different," she whispered, her hand tightening on her spear. The darkness ahead seemed to breathe. The chamber they entered defied physics. A vast circular room where the ceiling disappeared into darkness and the walls seemed to shift and change. The Marquis de Carabas was waiting for them, his usual smirk replaced by an expression of genuine concern. "You're late," he said, but his eyes were fixed on the key. Dor began the intricate process of aligning the key with the ancient mechanism they'd discovered, each click and turn sending reverberations through the chamber that sounded like distant bells. Richard noticed something odd about the shadows. They weren't moving with their light sources. Instead, they seemed to be creeping closer, gathering like silent spectators to their ritual. The Marquis suddenly tensed. "We're not alone." The mechanism sparked to life, rings of copper and brass spinning with increasing speed. The air crackled with energy, and Dor's eyes widened as the key began to transform in her hands. But something was wrong. The Marquis stepped forward, his face illuminated by the strange light, and Richard saw something in his expression that made his blood run cold. Hunter's spear suddenly pressed against the Marquis's throat, but he only smiled. That same confident smile they trusted all along. "Did you really think," he said softly, "that finding the key was the hard part?" The shadows around them surged forward like a wave of darkness, and through the chaos, Richard heard Dor scream. The last thing he saw before the lights went out was the key, floating in mid-air, pointing to something none of them had seen before. A door that shouldn't exist. The ancient chamber beneath London below shimmered with an otherworldly blue light. Its walls adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to move like liquid silver. Dor, Richard, and Hunter stood before the massive archway, its surface rippling like disturbed water. The Angelus key hung heavy in Dor's hand, its metallic surface catching the ethereal glow. As they approached, the chamber began to hum with power, the very air crackling with ancient magic that had laid dormant for centuries. The Marquis de Carabas's warnings echoed in their minds, but the path ahead was clear. They had to proceed. The Angel Islington's beautiful facade cracked like porcelain as the truth emerged. Its radiant wings cast terrible shadows on the chamber walls as it revealed its true intentions for the key and Dor's family. Richard watched in horror as the being they had trusted transformed before their eyes, its once gentle voice becoming a symphony of malice. Hunter's betrayal cut deeper than any blade, her warrior's pride leading her down a path that would cost them all dearly. The chamber's blue light turned blood red as ancient mechanisms began to whir to life, and the gateway to Atlantis slowly began to open. The gateway pulsed with raw power as Islington's plan neared completion. Dor's unique abilities made her the final key to unlocking the path to Atlantis, but the price of failure would be catastrophic. The Marquis de Carabas appeared from the shadows at the crucial moment, his usual smirk replaced by grim determination. As Hunter faced her final battle with the Beast of London, Richard found himself making a choice that would determine not just his fate, but the fate of both London above and below. The chamber trembled, ancient stones threatening to collapse as powers beyond mortal understanding clashed. Just as victory seemed within Islington's grasp, the true nature of Dor's inheritance revealed itself. But with it came a terrible choice. Richard Mayhew found himself back in his London, the London above, as if nothing had ever happened. His job was waiting, his flat pristine, and even Jessica called to reconcile. The city buzzed with familiar energy, yet something felt hollow. In meetings, he caught himself searching for shadows beneath the conference table, half expecting rats to deliver messages. His colleagues noticed his distant gaze through windows, not focused on the cityscape, but searching for something between the cracks of reality. One morning, while sipping coffee at his regular cafe, he could have sworn he saw Dor's reflection in his spoon, her wild hair and patchwork dress, a stark contrast to the suited business people around him. The dreams wouldn't stop. Each night, Richard found himself wandering through the twisting corridors of London below. The Marquis de Carabas's laughter echoed through phantom tunnels, and Hunter's confident stride seemed to match his own heartbeat. He began noticing things others couldn't or wouldn't see. Gaps in reality, doors that shouldn't exist, and faces in crowds that disappeared too quickly. During a rainy Tuesday evening, a familiar rat speaker's whisper carried through a gust of wind, and Richard realized with startling clarity that London below wasn't done with him yet. The city itself seemed to be calling, its magic seeping through the cracks of his carefully reconstructed normal life. It happened on a perfectly ordinary Thursday. Richard was taking the tube home when he spotted a familiar crack in the wall, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. His heart raced as he approached, memories of adventures flooding back. A choice lay before him: continue his safe, predictable life in London above, or answer the siren call of the extraordinary. As his fingers traced the edge of the crack, he felt the warmth of magic beckoning. Behind him, the sound of the last train faded, and ahead, was that Dor's voice calling his name? The crack widened ever so slightly, golden light spilling onto his shoes. Richard took a deep breath, knowing his next step would change everything. Again, the station lights flickered once, twice.
Thank you for venturing into this realm with me. If you crave more enchanted worlds, mythical battles, and secrets whispered from ancient pages, join the Guild of Storybound Explorers. Subscribe now and ring the bell to unlock every new quest the moment it drops. The next chapter awaits. Will you answer the call?